Coochie conversation time. Coochie conversation time.
Coffee! Coffee!
Where you at? Where you at?
Coffee! Coffee!
Where you at? Where you at?
Wednesdays, starting November 2nd at noon.
Cheryl, please, let me tell my friends. Come on. I've kept this secret for so long.
And you've done a great job keeping the secret. It is, we're almost ready. We almost got everything lined up. I'm so ready, so excited to do this video cast.
You don't understand. I can barely keep Christmas presents a secret. How am I keeping this a secret any longer? I can't do it. I have to tell my friends.
You just got to keep it secret a little bit longer. Just a little bit longer until the timing is absolutely perfectly right.
Oh, Cheryl.
Happy Hump Day, coffee, coochie conversation, friends and fans. This is Cheryl.
And Kelly.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Yep. Fake it till you make it, Kelly.
Yeah, there we go. Boom.
We were just talking about having one of those days, and sometimes there is just something in the air that seems to get people to where everybody has one of those days. And in spite of that, we're going to have a great time here. I'm glad we have Brandon came back to join us. And the idea is sitting down with a friend over coffee. And how would the conversation go? What would we talk about? This friend just happens to be a licensed therapist, licensed in both the state of Illinois and the state of Iowa. And so we're going to have some real talk. It might not all be funny. We love when things are fun and funny, but life isn't all fun and games. And I, for one, keep my sense of humor handy for times like this. I believe that when stupid stuff happens, like spilling my coffee last time, that my mom, who passed away, is in heaven laughing at me really, really hard. And I'm providing entertainment for them on the other side because, you know, it could get boring in heaven and I would hate that. So thank you for joining us again. Happy 2020, 2023. I had that brain glitch because someone had commented about so far 2023 has been good compared to, and I'm like, we're 2 weeks in.
How low are the standards when like 2 weeks in we're like, all right, this is pretty good?
It's the 2020, 2021, 2022 standards we are in now for 2023. And my response to him was, yes, it's only been this many days. And if we were in a different part of the country with the weather the way it is, we would already be saying how terrible 2023 is.
Touche.
We've just been blessed with some mild weather, a mild winter so far. So
There was a Friday the 13th, though, right?
Yes.
Yep.
depending on where you come from, that's good luck.
Or bad luck.
Again, it's
no,
perspective.
it is good luck, but it brings out the crowd.
So is it like St. Patrick's for a party night, for a drinking night?
It's
or
like
just
weird things happen, eerie things happen.
like a full moon thing?
I mean, Fridays are usually, when the bartenders are there. So weird things happen. You see weird things.
It could just be the environment, too.
Very true.
We're back to that again. So nature versus nurture. How much is the environment and how much of it is what we bring to the mix?
I think it's both. And for the record, my birthday sometimes falls on Friday the 13th.
Really?
Yeah. Nothing bad's ever happened.
But you're
really.
okay. So 13th is 13 your lucky number then?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I consider
bet.
it my lucky number.
For sure.
And that's where even 666 is sometimes got a negative connotation, but on other cultures or beliefs, it's a positive number.
Yeah.
It's a good number. So it's interesting how we can. So you always have a good time on your birthday. Mm-hmm. Crazy people come out of the woodwork. Is that the connection
Have
I was
you ever
getting
noticed
here?
it, or is it just me?
I've not. I
It
guess
just
maybe
seems eerie to me. I don't know.
last Friday. It's just a regular Friday to me. I didn't notice anything.
So it probably is put in our head like, oh, it's Friday the 13th.
Watch out for black cats and stuff.
Yeah.
Which I always find is like
Don't break a
irritating because
mirror.
I love black cats. Black cats are the best.
Oh, man. My neighbor had a black cat that scared the life out of me all the time. I ran to my mom, said, it's purring at me. And I meant hissing.
Oh.
Yeah.
I come from a family that my mother would go around the block if the black cat crossed her path and she was going down the road. I, on the other hand, I have a black cat. So, yeah,
What's his name?
George Clooney. That way I can tell
I knew it
people
was gonna be
George
funny.
Clooney, laid on top of me and kept me awake all night. George Clooney wouldn't leave me alone last night. And I have a cat called Trouble. There's that sense of humor. It seems like calling your cat Trouble is a really good idea until you tell your kid to go find Trouble.
Oh.
Where's Trouble? Go look for Trouble. So then you reevaluate the names. So that's how I name my cats and my animals is based on the laugh factor afterwards. So
I knew it was going to be funny.
Well, it's like your kid and your dog. It's the same. You go and stand at the door and you yell it a few times, right? And you have to see how the neighborhood responds. I had a cat named Baby, and this is no joke.
Oh,
This is the truth, yes. And we had an apartment fire. This was in Indianapolis, Indiana. And the cat got out. Firemen came, all that stuff. We had to go find a place to live. And the cat, I couldn't find the cat. So friends were walking around for days around the apartment complex, yelling, baby, baby, yeah. We only had the police called on us one time.
Wow.
So that really wasn't bad when you think about it. Close to dark, a bunch of men walking around yelling, baby, baby, looking under bushes and stuff like that. I, on the other hand, was the one to get the cat, and I waited for the cat to come to me.
Mm. As with most cats, that's kind of how it has to be.
Is it?
Oh, and the cat told me off. When she finally came out from under that bush, she was like, rah, rah, rah. You know what last day's been like, and rah, they're farming.
I
rah,
swear to
and
God,
else.
cats are so smart.
So we talked a little bit by text about picking up where we left off some from the last time we were here. And I mentioned, and we talked about suicide, and suicide isn't a fun conversation.
No.
But because of this podcast, I've had conversations with people I wouldn't have otherwise had. I don't know about you.
About that particularly, I feel like I've had deep conversations, but maybe not that. But still, knowing that you have to be, cautious of what you say and sometimes just listen, like you said. Yeah.
Well, and it's sitting down and having someone you feel safe with them and not having that judgment, the no judgment zone. And I think just even opening the door that we are willing to talk about something that hurts and is scary and we don't want to talk about. But what I know is there are some people that are killing themselves slowly. Mm-hmm. And it's okay. It's socially accepted in some instances. Mm. And then you have the people that go the route of suicide, like we talked about. And so one of the things about this building and the involvement with this building, I want to, if everybody's cool with me doing this, dedicate this episode to a man named Keith Bloom. And if you know Keith, to know Keith was to love Keith. Mm. And he wanted to help people. And he's not here to do that now. But I think that if having the conversation helps one person, Keith would be like, hell yeah, it was worth it. Keith's picture is right over there on the wall. And that's why the last time you were here, I kept looking over that way in that car. Done Right TV was a sponsor of his race car. And that's how Dunride even got into the racing, was through Keith. And so we're coming up on about 3 years of Keith transitioning and leaving, but Keith's energy is still in this place. And I do think he doesn't want to be forgotten, I believe, and that he would want good to happen in spite of what happened. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So if we could dedicate to Keith Bloom with a little whoop whoop yay yay in the background, because Pitbull really was a super good guy. And so I'm going to keep my sense of humor handy as we talk about, and that's a coping skill. It might not be appropriate in every place, but laughter can sure change an energy in a room. Can we talk about... Exactly. Thank you, Josh. We're so glad to have you back, Josh. What other things can we do as individuals if we're feeling that can, coping skills other than, with the hammer and that's the only thing you got, and the hammer and the sense of humor and that's all you have? What other things can we have?
Well, you gave a great example of how making meaning of some sort of adverse circumstance or experience is a way to kind of get over the discomfort of it and sort of help you do something constructive with it. Like when you made a joke about pouring the coffee on you last time, and how when things like that happen, you believe that your mother's kind of pulling pranks on you, and so in one way you're also sort of not making a mountain out of a molehill. Like, we all spill coffee on us every now and then, but on the other hand, you still get to incorporate a memory of your mother and make meaning of her loss, and sort of incorporate that into your day-to-day life. So that's another tool that we could use to cope, is we find ways to make meaning of it. We also we can, I guess, one of the things that we really struggle with is being able to just talk about it. Because we can talk about all sorts of other things, like the passing of a family member, because we've all experienced something like that at some point. And if we haven't, we know somebody who has. Death is a part of life. And so we have a shared language of how to talk about death. And a lot of that varies from culture to culture, from family to family, but we've all had some way of talking about it. And that really makes it easier to talk about. But when it comes to subjects like suicide, we don't really have a shared language with that. A lot of cultural things have come into, cultural forces have come into play that said that, this is a shameful thing. We're not supposed to talk about this stuff. If you have a family member in your past that has ever, died by suicide, they, the family's like, oh, well, we don't talk about that. Or they find some other way to couch it, because of the way it used to mean back then. But it doesn't mean that stuff now. And the more we talk about it, the easier it gets, so that we can have that common language. We can share ideas, share resources, share, each other's experiences. So that's sort of, that's my take on it.
So I guess it is a little bit like cancer at this point. Everybody's family has been affected by it.
Absolutely.
Because it's hard to bring I feel like I want to talk about it, but I just don't know how to, or if it's the right time, or any of that stuff. And imagine me being quiet. I mean, really. And I don't know what to say, so I end up saying nothing, and I know that's not the right thing.
It does feel off, doesn't it, when you say nothing? So sometimes you just have to say something and see if it works. Trigger warnings, those are things that are now more common than they've been, well, at least throughout the last 5 years or so, I think I start seeing trigger warnings everywhere. Like when you're consuming media, social media or whatever. Like there has been some, like the idea of a trigger warning is to give somebody a heads up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like a heads up, we got a conversation about this today. This is going to contain elements of sexual assault or rape and stuff like that. And the idea is to get people prepared in case like it's something that's sensitive to them. And you don't want to sort of like spring that on them. Like it's kind of like you're trying to be sensitive to everybody's experiences.
Right.
And you don't want them to be put on the spot where they're having a panic attack because you're talking about something that they didn't anticipate. Like some recent research has come out that suggests that trigger warnings aren't, they tend to increase anxiety in people. And the way, and so that's the other thing is like when you're consuming that type of information, like research, oftentimes you're getting it from some sort of reporter or journalist who's doing their best to kind of take like a 37-page document and condense it into like an 8-second soundbite. And it's oftentimes it's wrong what they tell you. So the idea is like, oh, well, if this trigger warning is creating anxiety, therefore it's probably not working, so let's not do it. That's not what the research is saying. It's saying that it can elevate people's senses of anxiety, but it doesn't mean that they're useless.
You don't know how close somebody, like if my mom had just done that the day before and somebody said, yeah, that would be very hard.
Yeah. And if I gave you a trigger warning for that, you might be like, oh, so I'm going to prepare myself for it. My anxiety is going to increase a bit, but at least when like you get the option to choose if you're going to stay or if you're going to step out. Mm-hmm. And if you choose to stay, then you are, when it does happen, you're more prepared for it, and you can make your choice if you even want to participate in the conversation or if you just want to be, a fly on the wall. That's okay.
You're bringing up something that I had no intention to bring up, and here we are. I am aware of trigger issues I have. Mm. My dad passed away of brain cancer. I was his caregiver. So long hallways in hospitals became something that I just couldn't do and would make me physically ill. Mm. And just before COVID, a family member got hurt, needed surgery. I found the quickest way in the hospital, the back doors, so I didn't, have to do any of that. But then when she got transferred in the nursing home, I came around that corner and there was that long hallway. Mm. And I had to go straight to the bath. It was the start of COVID. They had just done my temperature at the front door. Mm. I went to the bathroom and then I had to leave. I was physically ill from just seeing the long hallway. So caregiver stress was why I originally went into hypnosis, became a hypnotherapist, was to help people for that. And went off on other tangents with weight loss and things like that. But you can see why that was an issue for me was because I had been a caregiver and it was extremely stressful. Mm-hmm. But I did not know when I was doing it that later there would be these things until they come up.
Right.
So that's the other issue is you don't know until it happens.
Right.
So then how do you prepare for that? Because I did. I got physically ill. My blood pressure went up. I got hot. I was not good.
Yeah, you didn't see it coming. So,
no.
I think that's a good illustration that you can't be fully prepared for all of that stuff. So you just have to live your life. And when you do come across something that triggers you like that, it's like, oh, okay, that I didn't see that coming. And then sort of prepare yourself later for something like that. The temptation is to avoid that from now on. That's the temptation. But that doesn't make you better because there will be other hallways. And so unless you plan on completely avoiding places that have long hallways for the rest of your life, and, sometimes that might be plausible for some people.
Well, you see the effort I went through to make sure I found the back way into the hospital.
It might be better to
quickest
conquer
way.
that fear.
Yeah. Well, and that's just it.
Yeah.
Me of all people, And so I was able to work my way through it and have that mental conversation of and recognize what it is. But that doesn't mean I'm going to go charging down hallways.
No.
No, and I don't mean that. But I mean that feeling confident walking with your head high down a hallway would probably feel good eventually to you to be able to do that.
Which, I mean, right now, that feeling is if someone came to me to talk to me about claustrophobia, they would describe those feelings the way I feel about just
I'm sure
the
you'd have
hallway.
to do like steps.
In which case, then talk therapy, hypnosis, obviously, which I haven't done for myself. But I didn't
Nobody's
know
ever
it was
done
an
it to
issue.
you?
I didn't know it was an issue until the last couple of years, until COVID.
Until you had to be back in a hospital.
Yes. And so it's easy to back burner it because I am not walking in hospitals every day. But here I am sitting here. And that's why I said this isn't anything I plan to bring up or talk about. But it kind of fit into the conversation of the trigger warnings. And you can prepare, but...
You would have appreciated a heads up, you know, but then, like, what are you supposed to do with that heads up? That's the trick, right?
If I had thought it through, let me put it that way, if I had really sat down and thought about the nursing home and what could happen and how I could end up down a long hallway, which she was only like in the third door down. I didn't have to go all the way down the hallway.
You knew that, though, ahead of time?
I didn't, because
Like,
like
until you
neither of my
saw it.
parents were in nursing homes or anything like that. So no, I
mean,
didn't.
did you
but
think that long hallways were going to trigger you?
I knew they would because
Oh, okay.
of the hospitals and the doctor visits.
So you
which
could
is
prepare
why,
yourself then.
yeah, but
But walking
just,
into
I mean,
the-
there's probably times where you wouldn't be able to because you wouldn't even know that was going
Which
to
is-
trigger.
Right, which is the nursing home scenario. She didn't know that was going to pop up, and surprise.
But do hear me, like, okay, so you said before the nursing home, you knew that hallways, though, were going to bother you. So what if
Long
you
hallways.
didn't know, like, let's say, until she got to a hallway, she had no idea how bad that was going to trigger her.
The first time,
Yeah.
right?
But see, now I can prepare. and that's the key, I guess, is knowing around a corner. And going into hospitals is, you know, I took a friend for treatment here, procedure not long ago, and it wasn't an issue. It just wasn't an issue. And it's that preparing and knowing versus. And that's one thing that, the reason that firefighters train, police officers train, people like you train, so you don't have to think about it. You know what to do. That muscle memory takes over and things like that. And so I am aware of it. I would like to think that I could use my coping skills, breathing techniques, whatever, to get through it. But you notice I qualify the statement with, I would like to think that. So right there, that creates doubt, doesn't it? It's right there with the word try. I'm going to try and do it.
Well,
You either do it or you don't.
You're giving yourself, you're giving yourself though a bit of a buffer just in case.
A little
you know?
grace.
And it's okay. You know, it's like we're not going to be amazing at like just a little bit of preparation isn't going to be enough. You know, when I got back from my deployment, I did not do crowds very well. Like when you're deployed, they tell you like crowds are dangerous. You never know who the bad guy is. You never know who's going to shoot you. You never know when you're going to get blow up. And you know, all of a sudden you go from that for 15 months, and they just pick you up and they put you in Texas, and then you're like, okay, I'm home, I'm safe, but your brain isn't wired to make that change. So like you might be able to know that you are one place. You might be able to know that you're safe, but there's part of your brain that doesn't get that memo yet and is responding to the environment as it was trained to. That all of these different people are threats. All of these locations are threats. And so my strategy initially was to, get the early bird special, for dinner. Like if we were going to go out, avoid the crowd. I also had to avoid bars. I don't know what it was about bars. But if I was in a bar, I would get sick to my stomach. And eventually, and the last thing you want to do is hug a bar's toilet. That's like, it's not.
No kidding.
A nursing home toilet, I'm telling you.
Yeah. No, so it's like I can only be in a bar for like maybe 10 or 15 minutes before my anxiety gets to the point where my stomach is twisted up in knots, and then I have to leave. And You know, that's not
Still to this day?
No. So,
Interesting.
So for a while, I was tricking myself by avoiding it all, and everything was good as long as I was
Which is what I
avoiding it.
did, yes,
But
the
then-
avoidance plan.
So then I got to college. When I left the Army, I got to college, and we took a behavior modification course. And then my friends knew that this was an issue of mine. I've shared it with them. I'm like, I just don't do the bars in Macomb. It just makes my stomach twists and knots, and it's just not fun for me. And, and they want to hang out with me. They want to have fun with me. So being the helpful nerds that they were, they're like, well, let's do something with this. But we just learned how to do this, like this deconditioning stuff. So let's see if we can sort of recondition you to, you know, be better with it. And I'm like, okay. And so that we came up with a plan where we would go out to a bar and I would just drink water. But my goal was to see if I could stay a little bit longer than the last time. As soon as I am done, I get to say we're done and we leave. Nobody asks any questions. And that gave me power. That gave me control. And that was the security blanket, right? So initially I would go in and sit at this table and just drink my water. And my anxiety starts to rise like we knew it was going to happen. But then, Did
it get worse if somebody like talked to you? Or if you had to order something?
It was kind of a distraction technique for people to talk to me, but like it was hard to pay attention to what people were talking to because my stomach was twisting up.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody carries anxiety differently, but my stomach is the one that just tells me, it's like, you shouldn't be doing this. So that's, so if I start feeling sick.
Talk about that, listening to your body.
Yeah. Because it's going to, like some people say like, oh, my stomach hurts when I'm hungry. And I'm like, I don't understand that. If my stomach hurts, the last thing I want to do is eat. But my stomach tells me when I'm anxious. And so we did this where I would stay for as long as I could tolerate. And my personal limit was like, if I felt like I was like a step away from having to puke, we get out. Because if you leave too early, you're not learning anything. You're not challenging yourself. So I wanted to push it as far as I can. And it wasn't fun. But we would go and do this, and about like 2 or 3 times a week, we'd go out and try this. And then within a few months, that time started to get really longer. And then there's no issue. I could go right now and be totally fine.
Do you think that could go backwards for somebody? Like it really messes, with them? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes. So this behavior modification technique is a form of exposure treatment. And if you are unstable to begin with, doing something that is going to be that's going to be highly stressful like that
out of your comfort,
not going to be very good. But like once you can learn some more stabilizing techniques to keep yourself calm or to talk yourself down when things start to escalate. Me personally, I knew that once I left, I would be fine. And so that was my stability, was just knowing that like it's only a problem when I'm in, and then when I'm gone, it'll get better. I'll be fine. But some people don't even have that, because the way that their lives have told them that nothing's safe, nothing's fine. You're never going to get better, And so learning that stability, that stabilization stuff, those tools is extremely important before trying an exposure technique.
Yeah, because I could see like me I'm going to make a funny out of this, okay? So I could see me taking Cheryl like 5 minutes on a Tuesday, 10 minutes on a Wednesday. You know what I'm saying?
Well, baby steps, no question. It's fine, the nursing home that would let us in like that.
What if I traumatized you though?
Well.
You'd be like, every time I come around.
No. Well, and what he said triggered something with me and what I've done helping people. And I've worked with them on what I call century down. And so, yeah, the avoidance hasn't worked, but my century is still up based on experience. And based on experience, it's always been negative. It's always been scary. It's always been something horrible at the end of that hallway or associated with all of it. So, one of the things I work with people, they'll say, Cheryl, can you help me take away their memories? And I'll say, absolutely not. All those experiences, watch the movie Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, and you'll see that you need those memories. My suggestion is like a tattoo. to go and get something put over top of it to where it's still there, but it's not as obvious. You don't see it as much. And so what I can see, so giving my physician heal thyself, listening to myself, that going and having positive experiences in long hallways would be good. Mm-hmm. In which case, if I focus about that, because the other long hallway experience I had was when my friend passed away and I went to Peoria for his organ walk. Mm. But the difference is that hallway was filled with EMS and firefighters and paramedics, and because he was a firefighter. And so I need to remember that experience a whole lot more. Mm. And remember how I didn't think about it being a long hallway because of what was happening around me. Mm-hmm. So that will help my century to relax a little bit, I believe. Mm-hmm. But it also wouldn't hurt me. I've got that little mini horse to find maybe a nursing home or two to go visit. And we could go sing Christmas carols next year for the people in the nursing home, and I could go down some long hallways. Mm-hmm.
Everyone, you get like, I don't know, some prize.
But that's the baggage is long hallways from being a caregiver.
It makes sense if you think about it. You might have been worried that saying it out loud would have made you look weird. Or,
it is weird.
But like I'm over here.
It is weird.
I'm over here, and the way that you're sharing it, like I instantly started visualizing it, and then knowing the feelings associated with hospital hallways and that uncertainty and the fears that circle around, like what's going on with your loved one. And I'm like, I'm feeling that too. That would be uncomfortable.
It's just a weird thing. And then as a hypnotherapist, to say that I have a fear is also something I would pass judgment on another hypnotist for, why don't you just take care of that? But at the same time, physician, heal thyself. And I mean, I loved what you even said, it's okay. It's okay. Those are powerful words right there. Mm-hmm. People need to hear that more. Say that like 5 more times. You're okay. It's okay. It'll be okay. And let's put out those good things.
Yeah. If it's not okay now, things will be okay eventually at some point. And that might mean things will be different. You know, but same doesn't mean okay. You know, and sometimes like in our lives, big things happen and it's never going to be the same. But things still do have a tendency to be okay over time.
Work itself out.
Yeah.
Well, and that's another conversation. I said these hard conversations I've had recently is about resolution. And people want to find resolution, and they think it's kind of a big deal. Mm. But I think that you don't have to talk to another person. You don't have to talk to that person to find resolution.
I think closure is overrated.
Oh, teach me more, because I unfortunately get stuck with that.
Closure is overrated. It's a trap too, because like a lot of times it forces people to come in contact with very dangerous people, unhealthy situations where you can get subjected to more abuse. Mm-hmm. A lot of times, like in relationship type stuff too, it's like the person you want to get closure from isn't capable of giving you that.
I know. I know this. I hear this, but like, I know it's hard to understand that for some reason.
It's okay to want it.
I take it personal.
It's okay to want closure. Mm-hmm. Like that's like a normal thing. It's like we'd all like everything to be tied up in a nice, neat little bow. Unfortunately, that's not realistic all the time. And it can be dangerous. It can be dangerous to pursue it. Mm-hmm.
And hindsight, too, when you can go and look back and see that, you know, the fork in the road was really good. And, you know, thank goodness you weren't able to keep going that direction. Mm-hmm. Or someone saved you from yourself, by God. Mm. Isn't that what it comes down to sometimes? Getting out of your own way, being your own worst enemy.
Yeah.
And just someone actually saving you from yourself. Mm-hmm.
Oh man, it sounds so easy.
Well, okay, not looking for a
But it's
knight
true.
in shining armor type thing, not that, but that opportunity, that job, that relationship, that whatever that you like put everything into and it fizzled, and you don't have that resolution, but then you can go down the road and look back and like when you have the kids and say it wasn't even about me anyway. It was always about them to begin with.
Right.
And it's what's happened now and the opportunities presented to them that otherwise, that's how.
I've gotten closure from people many years later too. And that feels good, you know, I mean, obviously. That being said, I read something today that said, and what I thought you were talking about before when you said triggers, but it was, and this is part of that hard conversation, 5 things to look for before somebody might commit suicide, right?
It's okay to say the word.
Yeah, I know. And then, but one of the things was they go tie up all their loose ends. So if they felt like they had a problem with somebody, they out of nowhere will go and try to fix that really fast. Isn't that interesting?
That's
very
a red
interesting.
flag. Yep.
Well, and it's just, again, being aware, and if somebody paying attention, and if somebody feels safe sharing with you, you know, you answer the phone in that phone call, and I need your help. I need someone to talk to. But this is where when I had that conversation, I said, I sure wish I had someone to talk to who was objective. Someone to talk to that, not all my friends make good decisions. Why would I listen to them? I mean, really,
You
let's
do
just
have to
break
take
it
into
down.
consideration, like, the person, for sure. I don't think your friends are one of the bad categories, though, probably.
Oh, you don't know all my friends.
I mean,
yeah,
friends or
listen.
acquaintances, for that matter.
Well, and there's some, you know, we're going out with the ladies' weekend, cheaper than therapy, quote unquote. There's a lot to be said for being with your lady friends.
I do think women can definitely hype you in the wrong direction at times.
Yeah.
For sure. Like, your man did that? What? And like make it so much bigger than it had to have ever been.
And I think men can do the same thing to other men.
I agree.
You know, cock block is a term that, you know, men like to do to each other. And you want to talk about working somebody up if you go out and you're acting like that every time you go out. And that's supposed to be your friend. Or your friend doesn't have a relationship, so wants to make sure that
Nobody else does either.
I need my homies.
we laugh because it's true.
It is true.
And so being single right now is not easy. And that's what we had just started when you came in, that they're saying now that young people, 18 to 22, say they're just as lonely and isolated as elderly people. That's wrong.
Yeah.
Well, it's because nobody wants to have a conversation anymore. They want to text message everything.
You know what? There might be some validity to that. Like it's the illusion of connection. And I don't want to sound like that, like, you know, the old person that doesn't get the kids these days with their texting and stuff. But like, I mean, like, seriously, it does seem like there's convenience with texting, and texting is not perfect. Phone calls aren't perfect. Face-to-face interactions aren't perfect. It's just, you know, there's a time and place for everything. I think replacing all telephone calls with texts isn't exactly the best way to do things, because we all know those people who read text messages in the way that they think is being, you know,
Isn't
said.
that the truth?
You know, if I'm in a pissy mood and I'm reading a text message from a loved one, from a friend or a partner, I could look at it and be like, oh, well, you know, this was
They
disrespectful.
put an exclamation point.
Yeah, like reading too much into stuff. And the reason we overread these things is because we're missing information, we're missing data. And so we're trying to extrapolate from what we get. And we end up miscommunicating a lot.
But even think about it. So, like, when I moved to Washington, they didn't even have sleepovers. It was called late night stays. And it's literally a thing. And they could stay till midnight. Then they went home. That was the best part of my elementary. You know what I mean? Like sleepovers.
I was thinking adult. I
Oh
went
my
to.
God.
I was like, they didn't stay at all. What happens to the after sex affection? I was like, bummer. She's saying that's
You
my
don't get
favorite
cuddled,
part.
Cheryl. You just
No
gotta go
cuddles.
home. No, I'm
No
just
cuddles.
kidding.
Well, Netflix and chill. How did I know?
They already called you the Uber. No.
There you go. Sex in the City. That's right. Want them out. Boom. Things are different now. These kids, and it's expensive to go out and take somebody on a date. What food costs and what do you do? Especially if you live in a city, I would think it would be even more difficult for someone to maintain a social life.
Yep.
So that takes you back to FaceTime and these apps, and then it's just perpetuating the cycle.
And when your whole peer group has got 2 or 3 jobs that they're trying to balance at the same time, you are mostly going to get text messages and snaps because it's just like, hey, I don't know what their schedule looks like this week. This is what my schedule is, so I'm going to shoot you something, hope you get to read it. And then I get mad when I see that you read and you didn't respond immediately to me. And it's, that's just, it's...
Those darn iPhones.
It's like narking on you.
I have my red receipt on. Just
Smartphones
Just to
and
show
not
that
so
I'm-
smart people.
I've personally have never seen that someone has left me on red and then taken offense to it. Like I choose.
Oh my God, I know.
I choose never to take offense to that because I'd rather assume that they were busy. I would rather assume that like when I sent them the message, they had 9 other things going on and maybe their phone started to ring and so they quickly shut it off or something so they could pay attention to something that's really important.
That's me.
Like that's a great thing, But when people have that egocentric nonsense where they say like, "Oh, how dare you? You must immediately drop everything in your life to contact me back when I take that 30 seconds to send you a text message." Like, get over yourself. Like, just
people yell at you on different websites if you don't message back. It's like, oh my goodness.
Well, and
I
then,
can't put that number 1 in my life.
no.
and now we're getting to narcissistic type behaviors.
Absolutely, yeah.
When you've got someone like that, and we touched on it that we were going to talk about narcissistic behaviors here at some point.
They say gaslighting is the number 1 phrase of 2022. Is that
Yeah.
right?
I don't know about its rankings, but it's super popular to talk about. It's something that's out there now.
Or maybe they were saying that was the most used phrase, but maybe didn't understand how they were using it. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
Like people were just calling it what that,
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
people misuse words a lot.
Especially when they learn a new word, right?
Have you ever been gaslighted?
For sure. 100%.
No, you haven't.
I got you did the funny.
That was a very uncomfortable moment, too.
I was like, wait, what? I haven't? Are you sure? No, I'm just kidding.
Meanwhile, I'm sitting here ready to sell tickets. I'm like, it's on. Let's hear it. Come on. Share, please.
No kidding.
Share. Gaslighting is, maybe we're hearing it because people are practicing it so much and people are becoming aware that's what's happening. The term is getting used more because people are sharing, this is what someone has done to me, because a narcissist, I think one of the wonderful tools of a narcissist is to make sure people don't talk and compare notes.
Yes.
And I use wonderful in quotes. They are good at telling stories, so people stay away from other people, and they're left in the middle directing the puppet master.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's as far as like the tools that they use to kind of like control the narrative and control people. I think that's also so there's lying there, like they lie to do that, and then gaslighting is different from lying, but I think that's where a lot of people mix it up. Like they'll like somebody will lie about something, like they just gaslit me. I'm like, no, they straight up lied to you. The big difference being that like when they are trying to get you, like the purpose of gaslighting is not to avoid trouble. Like when people lie, it's to avoid getting into trouble. Gaslighting is to make you feel like you don't know up from down. It's to make you question
That didn't
reality.
happen.
That didn't
What?
happen. Oh, well, you're just blowing things out of proportion, like all these like
You're
things
so crazy.
Yeah, like they make you feel like you are crazy.
Everybody thinks you're crazy.
And then everybody hears that, and so they control all these other people by making you the bad guy.
Yeah.
And then it's just very toxic. Whereas lying is just like, no, I wasn't smoking.
Right.
That must have been the neighbor that was over here. That's not gaslighting. That's lying. And I think that's where, again, people make the mistake.
Is someone who isn't a narcissist gaslight? Will they do that, or will only narcissists, psychopathic types gaslight?
No.
I think everybody has tendencies of all of it, don't they?
It's with narcissistic personality disorder, you got to look for big patterns. Whereas the common Joe that's just trying to, maybe has like, they've grown up and they heard their parents kind of like gaslight each other. Maybe they think that that's how how people are supposed to communicate. They might, like, there's like a spectrum there, right? There's a greater or lesser degree of narcissism. We all have narcissistic traits. All of us.
Not me.
I know,
Me,
because
myself,
when you're
and I.
reading them, you're like, oh shit.
It's like, yeah. It's like,
I
do
might,
that.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
But we don't like the overt, like the overarching sort of pattern of behaviors is where you're like, oh, that's something.
Or if they have like over so many, right? Mm-hmm. Like if they have like 9 of the 10 or whatever it is.
Yes, and that's sort of how we gauge that. And context matters too.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you are, you're interviewing someone who's like 40 years old, and you got 40 years of experience to pick and choose things that fit this diagnosis. But if you're pulling all these examples from last Tuesday, it's like, okay, that's a bit different.
Oh yeah.
And there's something I saw on PBS way back when that, like it or not, there's a huge percentage of corporate America types that they have this diagnosable condition.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to name any names.
Leaders, basically, is what you're saying. Yeah, for
yes.
sure. I agree.
And that's where, like, for instance, going into politics, I say nobody in their right mind would go into politics. Well, that right there.
Exhibit A.
Yeah. So people click, for instance, don't talk to me about going into politics. I ain't doing it. So we talked a little bit about narcissists. If you have a narcissist in your life and you have to deal with them, yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
So like the and the thing is, when we look at research and these big articles that talk about things like narcissistic personality disorder and like even things that have to do with things like pedophilia, the research that we have is very limited on both of these types of conditions too. You only get the people that get caught. You only get the people that are interested in participating in these studies.
Oh, okay.
And so there's a whole bunch of people out there that don't get caught or don't offend or they don't do anything really socially egregious enough to warrant attention. And so that part of the data gets out, like is removed from all of these other these studies that we get to read. So when we say narcissists do X, Y, and Z, there's a bunch of research on narcissists that really aren't, maybe they aren't, I guess the circumstances in which a narcissist would participate in a study has got to be pretty unique. Like they don't really like to do stuff like that. They don't end up in therapy very often.
I have 2 questions. Mm-hmm. Do you think that narcissists know they're narcissists?
Yes.
Okay.
They don't care.
And then, I have friends that have told me they
care.
are.
Yeah.
Okay, then tell me this. Do you agree with this? I went into my doctor because I learned what narcissist meant. And I'm like, do you think I'm a narcissist? And this was before I had Paisley. She goes, the fact that you are asking me if you're a narcissist and you're concerned about it means you're not a narcissist. And I was like, okay.
Pretty much.
I would, I would like, of course, like I would, if I were the one that you walked up to and asked that, I would just be like, well, if you want an assessment, I could do one. Rules of thumb don't really play very well in psychology. But I mean, it's a good thing.
Well, I didn't know if she was just like shooing me away.
And maybe she was.
I mean, she laughed so hard, but I have had many experiences with her because I worked at that's how I met my doctor. I worked at Verizon, and she came and got phones for me. So we had plenty of time to talk, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what you do at a Verizon store.
It used to take a long time to get that stuff set up. I don't think it takes as long now. I don't feel like it does. But I don't know that I ever had that.
It doesn't. It definitely doesn't.
Of course, I wasn't on your side of the table to have a conversation with a doctor about
no.
narcissisms.
That was an appointment that I had made after plenty of times meeting her.
Oh, you didn't have this conversation in the Verizon store.
See,
if it was me, I would have had it right in the Verizon store. I'd be like, it's on.
Let's do it now.
Let's everybody get in on this.
That when I have an idea, I have to go figure it out that second.
Well, sometimes people who are the victims of narcissists will believe that they themselves are narcissists because that's one of the things the narcissist will accuse them of. You're being selfish. You're only thinking about yourself. You're never thinking about me. And then these people... Like maybe they're right, and then they walk away thinking that they are narcissists, and it's like, yeah, if it doesn't fit, that makes me wonder if that's what's going on. Like there has to be a reason why you might think something like that.
I definitely, and you can get it from your parents too, right? Like you can.
The research tends to show that narcissists are sort of created; they aren't born. Narcissists are raised, and I don't want that to be something where parents have to feel like they're responsible for their kids, condition. It's not like that. There's so many different, like you could have a set of twins, like genetic twins, and just like
one's this way and one's this way.
The parenting has so little influence over how they actually turn out when they grow up. It's not worth really talking about. Like all of the 4 hours a day a kid gets to hang out with mom and dad after school or after work is not as big as the 8 hours with their friends. They have plenty of opportunities to figure out like how to learn selflessness and all these other things. But yeah, parenting can be a factor. Narcissistic parents can sort of like, especially if they got a favorite kid, they can kind of push that kid towards that type of personality topography, but it doesn't have to, but it's not like this kid will be a narcissistic. It's not like that.
Right.
But I think there's more that goes into play with it. And everything goes back to childhood, pretty much.
Yep. It definitely.
And so something happens in childhood is what I understand. And the older they get, the worse they get when they're true narcissists. And there are actually different kinds of narcissists. Your malignant narcissist, your toxic narcissist. I've dated every one. Turkey narcissist. That was a joke.
I'm like, please tell me what.
I know.
He was a real turkey. He was just a freaking turkey. So yeah, I even have bad taste in narcissism. Well, I don't know if you realize what time it is.
I don't. What time is it?
Go ahead and check your watch. This is how you know you've had good conversation. So we're right at about an hour. So we kind of need to wrap up. I'm sure there's things that we still didn't talk about that people would like to hear and talk about. And just, again, if we give them the courage, it's a kind of a hard word to use, but at the same time, I guess if you're willing to talk about it, you are showing you're brave.
Absolutely. So
there's some courage to being able to step out of your comfort zone and have the hard conversations. So maybe we're just in a time where hard conversations, it's time to have the hard conversations. And I'm going to use that as a transition to next week.
All right.
Larry Garrett will be Zooming in next week, and Larry is the civilian hypnotist that was in Baghdad on September 11th of 2001. And he's going to tell us his story of why he was there, how he got there, what happened when he was there, how he got home, and what happened since. Basically, he's going to share his truth, and he's going to give us a different perspective because he was in Baghdad when the trade towers came down. He was with the enemy when they came down, and his story hasn't really been shared. So we have that opportunity for him to come Zoom in out of his office in Chicago next week at noon. I hope you will watch as a veteran that And you might even engage in some questions that we wouldn't think, because we haven't been there. We haven't walked on that dirt, boots on the ground. And so you might have questions, but it's not going to be at all, there's no politics to this, because there's no reason for that. It's his story of how he got there, who got him there, why he went there, what happened, and what's happened since. And then on February 1st, we have the Tailgate and Tall Boys promoter, founder, the Clinton. They're doing it for the first time in Clinton, Iowa this summer. They're going to be talking to us February 1st. February 8th, there's a nonprofit here in East Village of Davenport that it's called Siren Ship, and it's about art. And so it's an art resource center. People for donating old art supplies, but kids can go there. And the owner of that, we're going to have a board member and the founder of that, Heidi and Jen. And then we have Ms. Iowa 2021 is going to join us later in February. Oh. So we have some just really good things coming up. Hopefully you can come back. February seems to be a little bit of a shorter month, but if you can find a Wednesday, especially you talked about how you have some transition happening in your office. Mm-hmm. So we'll talk and see if there's a date in there to get you in February. And if you're able to come back and spend time with us, we appreciate it.
Sure.
I think if it's good for us, it's good for the people listening. And I know it was good for me today. That century down, I need to give myself a little instruction on that. And until we had the conversation, I hadn't come to that realization. So we are here at Done Right TV. Appreciate Kelly Jeffries and what Done Right does for us. We got our man Josh back. Is Holidays still open at the mall? They are closed, but they can find them at flea markets, and it's going to be Christie's Creations.
I think they might be done.
Are they done for the year?
No, I think they may be done. I think they're handing it over to my brother and his wife.
Ah, keeping it in the family though. Okay, keep us up to date where we can find those fabulous creations. Any internet phones deals we need to know about?
I have the best deals. Call me, message me. Seriously, I'm not kidding. It's crazy. Nationwide broadband, 5G, unlimited, home internet.
So yes, your one stop is Kelly here. Anything you need to or want to add to the conversation before we say goodbye to our friends that are listening?
No.
Put you on the spot.
Thanks for listening, and I guess to avoid sounding like cliche, just be kind to each other. Have a good January.
That's a great way to finish.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Peace, love, and we're out. Cheers.